Right, now what you can see me doing here with a strong mix of phthalo blue and raw umber to give us almost a bluey greeny black, because what we're creating is a deep dark background. You'll find I'll use this technique throughout the course. So I'm just going to carry on painting this, just do a mass of background trees, and then once I've done that we'll have a look at putting in the lighter foliage. Right, now I've mixed up 3 colours of greeny yellow, and bit by bit we're going to put this over these background dark shadows. You can see I've also used these same 3 colours in various proportions, just streaked on. So I'm now just going to stab in. I'm assuming incidentally that the sun is coming from top left. You don't want it completely covering everywhere, because we don't want to lose these very dark shadow areas to be covered are absolutely great for giving depth and 3 dimensions to the bushes. So you don't want to stab over all of them, particularly not at the base, and you want to leave some in the background so that we retain that contrast, that light against dark contrast. I'm going to put in some of the lighter colour now, the mid green, just here and there, over some of the dark green, but also over some of the black as well. And you can see the way I'm just imagining there's a bush here, and I'm imagining there's a bush there and another one there, and I'll do that all the way along. And I'll also put in here and there, while it's still wet, to see some of the highlights. Look at that, how easy is that? You're literally stabbing with the end of a ragged brush and you're creating instant trees and bushes before your very eyes. I'm going to finish off now, and when I've done all the rest of these bushes, we'll add a few little sticks and branches and twigs, and I'll show you how easy that is to do. Right, I'm just finishing off now. You can see I'm just stabbing highlights on. I'm going to just stop there now. I could do a lot more and enjoy myself a lot more. The main thing is to just don't cover too much of the dark at the end of the day. Don't lose that dark that you've worked hard to get, because that's going to give you your essential 3-dimension and shadow. What I'm going to do now is to use the number 1 round brush, and using some quite dark paint, I'm just going to pull in here and there a few little branches, and if I add a little bit of white to these areas here, that's fine. Just a few little branches, perhaps a little highlight on that one there. So we'll bring in the rigger and make some thin branches and some lights and darks. You can see I'm mixing that to a fairly, not exactly runny consistency, but certainly more fluid than the main paints straight out the tube. Okay, and we can just start modelling those a little bit, getting rid of some of that unnecessary light. And then if you want, you can bring in the colour shaper. I've put a little bit of brown paint on that, and that can just help to spread things around and move paint around here and there. And there we have a very simple, very effective way to paint clusters of bushes and trees in the background or in the middle distance, using a whole variety of brushes and drawing and painting instruments. Right, we're just going to have a quick look at painting grasses, but you can produce them in a variety of ways, and there's just a couple of little tips here that will help you to make sure that when you paint your grasses they look convincing, particularly if they're in the foreground, as they tend to be. First thing to make sure is that whenever you paint them, if you paint them light or dark, make sure you manufacture either via a bush like that, or a stone wall like this, or a rock or something similar. You've got a dark surface if you're going to paint a light grass, or vice versa if you're going to paint a dark grass, that it's one way or another going to show up against the background. Now, to paint an individual grass, what I'm going to use is the rigger, and here's some dark paint, and you can see how relatively thin and inky that is, and that's mixed with raw umber and phthalo blue, and I'm just going to take the excess off that, and I'm just going to literally flick up like that. So you see that blob? I've deliberately touched the base of the wall there. It really, what it does is to, you get a few thicker clusters at the base anyway, but more importantly, any excess paint that runs down the rigger to the tip, instead of you getting a big blot, you leave it where it can do the least harm, and that's, if you like, at the base of the wall. Okay, now I've done some thicker and thinner blades of grass. Then use the raggedy brush and you can suddenly create a whole series of little clusters of shorter grass, but almost like little clumps rather than individual clusters of grass. Now here's another brush that I've slightly adapted. So if we want to just stabbing down into that paint so that all the bristles are nicely covered, let's just take some of the excess out, and let's come over to these stones here. You can see the way you're never quite sure how this is going to work, or how many bristles or how many blades of grass are going to appear, but it doesn't matter, because if you're not sure, then it means it's going to be random when it does appear, which is what you want. What we're going to do now is the same, but with this lighter colour of paint, and then very lightly taking it to the base of the wall and bringing a little bit away from the wall, so that you don't give the impression that the grass is squashed at the bottom of the wall, but it sort of comes out a little way. Now you can see there I'm starting to get some form and dimension into these blades of grass. You've got the shaded bits of grass and the lit bits of grass. Right, I'll just add a little bit more green to this just for a bit of variety. Okay, and again taking that excess of paint out, I'm actually going to splay the bristles, so just be careful if you splay the bristles like that, you don't flick paint all over the place like that. And then if we just flick upwards, we've got that nice dark background of the rock and some nice little grassy clumps. If you're in the middle of an open field and you want to create some grasses without anything behind them, then just use a brush like that. You can see I've got the medium green paint, and I'm just pushing upwards so that the raggedy hairs are pushing those little blades of grass upwards in a very random but very effective manner. Right, I've just used the fan brush again. I've just added some highlights here and some dark paint underneath. So I hope you can see that by using a variety of tools and techniques, you're very easily able to get single grasses or little clumps of grasses just by using light and dark paint, which in their own way help to effectively link, in this case, a wall or a rock or a tree trunk or a fence post, whatever it is, into the ground. So there we are, very simple methods to produce grasses.